Part 86. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 852. The man carrying the coffin looked at Xuanhuan and spoke. His words shocked everyone. Especially people from the Dugu clan find it ridiculous. In their opinion, although Xuanhuan is a genius in swordsmanship, he is nothing to the Dugu clan. Chen Yu, on the other hand, opened her eyes wide and looked at Xuanhuan in disbelief. At this moment, the thoughts that she had just suppressed emerged again. Xuanhuan can activate the sword master's sword energy. And now, this unknown mysterious swordsman, also said that Xuanhuan is the biggest background of the Dugu clan. Could it be that? Her heart pounded. Are you kidding? Him. My Dugu clan background. At this time, Dugu Daisi's angry voice came. Just because they are such a country bumpkin, even if he has some swordsmanship skills, he is nothing in front of our clan. Our clan is an ancient clan of immortality. But the man carrying the coffin shook his head and said, it's really rare for a stupid family like yours to have a big thigh but not hug you. Eternal life? I think from today on, you can change your name to the short-lived family. He spoke casually, as if just making small talk. As for Dugu Songming, he was already a little frightened at this moment. He couldn't help but look at Xuanhuan and said, who are you? He is not as brainless as Dugu Daisi. This coffin-carrying man is at least an open-level boss, and Xuanhuan can be taken seriously by an open-level boss. It is conceivable that Xuanhuan is definitely not an ordinary person. Moreover, he is very likely to have something to do with the Dugu clan. This is terrible. Xuanhuan said calmly. My name is Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan. As soon as these four words came out, the expressions of everyone in the Dugu tribe changed. This young man also has the surname Dugu. When has our Dugu clan ever had such a genius? Dugu is the unique surname of our clan. No, he is not from our Dugu tribe at all. They all spoke. Bold, the Dugu clan is our clan's unique surname. How dare you impersonate my clan's surname, are you seeking death? Dugu Daisi shouted even more angrily. A unique last name. But at this moment, the man carrying the coffin opened his mouth, laughed, and said, did you know that, your surnames were all given by him? What a bunch of stupid people. They claim to be the descendants of the sword master, but the sword master is right in front of you, but they are blind and blind, how ridiculous. As soon as these words came out, everyone's expressions changed drastically. They all looked at Xuanhuan in shock. He, sword master? He is, sword master. No. Impossible, the sword master is already dead. The sword master died in battle in the pre-White Mist era and turned into an evil corpse, and he is obviously so young. Everyone felt it was unbelievable. Sword master? If you tell me this, who will believe it? How could a person who died in the pre-White Mist era appear in this life? Even Chinayu was shocked. Even though she couldn't help but have this conjecture just now, when she heard the man carrying the coffin say it, she still couldn't help but feel shocked. After all, Sword Master is obviously dead, but Xuanhuan is young and full of life. While everyone was shocked, Xuanhuan looked calmly at the man carrying the coffin. Are you the one who guards the evil corpse? In the coffin, is the evil corpse of my previous life. Xuanhuan spoke. The implication of his words was that he had admitted his identity. After all, there was no need to hide it now. When everyone heard this, they were all stunned. Could it be that Xuanhuan is really the reincarnation of the former sword master? What's in the coffin is the evil corpse of sword master. This is too scary. The man carrying the coffin smiled and said, yes, in this coffin is your previous life, sword master. And I, Yin Xuan, am the strongest swordsman in the world, no, the second strongest. The guy behind you is definitely better at swordsmanship than me. He has seen Dugu Yuking's true identity. Moreover, he is the strongest swordsman, and he has seen ghosts since he was on the road, so he is keenly aware that Dugu Yuking's current swordsmanship skills are very strong. Behind Dugu Yuking, there must be an unimaginable strong man. It can promote the recurrence of cause and effect and make people who have completely passed away reappear. Moreover, all the ways in the world have their own long rivers of cause and effect. If you want to pick up the supreme king of swordsmanship from the years, it means that the person behind Dugu Yuking can rule the long river of cause and effect of swordsmanship. This kind of existence, even he would never dare to offend. As for you, you are almost the same as I was when I was young, but you are still far behind me. Yin Xuan seemed to be introducing an ordinary thing, with confidence written in his eyes. Hearing this, Dugu Yuking couldn't help but smile and said, "From today on, you can change your name to Third?" Yin Xuan spread his hands and said, "I did play Third for a while. Back then, that woman who was proficient in all things was better than me. However, she later smelted Wan Dao. After Wan Dao was smelted, it was actually a new Dao. It should not be regarded as a strong swordsman. The title of second in swordsmanship still belongs to me. You. I'm looking forward to it, but maybe you're not strong enough." Dugu Yuking said. "Just maybe." Yin Xuan smiled. No one has competed with a sword in millions of years, until today. After he finished speaking, he suddenly took off the coffin from his back. Then, he slapped the coffin away with one palm. The coffin flew towards the Wuji Peak deep in the sword domain. Boom! At this moment, Yin Xuan's suppression of the coffin had been lifted, and the coffin exploded in the air. Then, a tall and majestic figure walked out of the coffin. It was a man, and his robe was covered with spots and traces left by dried mud. That is not real mud, but grey blood. In the grey fog sea, the blood of peerless creatures. And on his chest, there was a terrifying finger hole. In that finger hole, even though eternity has passed, there is still a terrifying sword intention flowing. It can be seen that this unparalleled sword master was actually killed by someone pointing his finger and using the sword's wool. This scene shocked everyone. Beyond imagination. With just one finger, I can kill your previous life with sword intent. Maybe you are right. I, Yin Xuan, may not be able to keep my title of second in swordsmanship. Is it possible that I will be called the second best in swordsmanship in the future? For Yin Lao-san. Yin Xuan spoke solemnly, with a hint of helplessness in his eyes. He has guarded the evil corpse for millions of years, but he has never seen the sword master's body with his own eyes. Back then, the woman who was known as the End of 10,000 Paths gave him only a coffin. Therefore, now that I saw the fatal injury of the sword master, I couldn't help but feel awestruck. After all, even though he had traveled more distances and seen ghosts than the sword master who was in his prime in the past, he still couldn't kill the sword master with such an easy method. Dugu Yuking said. "Will not. You can't even keep third place." When Yin Xuan heard this, he couldn't help but look at Dugu Yuking and said, "Tisk, it's amazing to have a background, but to speak so toughly. I like. Come, wait for him to recover, and you two will come together." Yin Xuan spoke, his words were so calm. He is extremely proud of his swordsmanship. "In my entire life, I have only lost once in actual combat at the hands of the one at the end of 10,000 paths." He has confident strength. Dugu Yuking smiled and said, "I was also about to say that when he recovers, you two will come together. He also has an invincible heart." At this moment, in the sword domain Tianyu ahead, the man who walked out of the coffin had turned his head and his eyes fell on Dugu Yuking and Yin Xuan. His empty eye sockets were as cold as frost. "You two, come together. Everyone. Good night." Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 853. At this moment, the Sword Master Evil Corpse has completely revived. His whole body exuded a kind of unparalleled sword spirit, and the entire sword field was boiling with his appearance. The energy of the Sword Master spreads throughout the heavens. In the true ancestor realm, everyone was shocked. The Supreme Being is born, such a strong sword power. Is this the Sword Master, one of the 10? It came from the Wuhuang realm. The Sword Master actually appeared in the Wuhuang realm. It's incredible. Attention from all parties. This is already the third Supreme Being born after Wuzun and Yinzun. In Jianzhou, where the Dugu clan is located, in the Dugu ancestral land, countless swords are ringing softly. 10,000 swords bow their heads. Sword Lord is born. In the main hall of the Dugu clan, the strong swordsman of the Dugu clan whispered. I hope Songming and Songxi can bring back great opportunities. The most important thing is to kill the 3 people who escaped from the Chen clan. If they see the evil corpse of Sword Master, it will be very troublesome. Someone else spoke. After all, many strong men of the Chen clan are now under house arrest by them. If the evil corpse of Sword Master wakes up and learns all this, their Dugu clan may have to bear the wrath of Sword Master. Don't worry, those 3 ants are nothing. Moreover, even if they don't act secretly, what will happen if the Sword Master learns all this? Don't forget, this is no longer their era. Before, Yinzun and Wuzun were born, and they were still silent before the world's sacrifice temple. The ancestor of our clan is also in the sacrifice temple, and he is no weaker than the Sword Master of the past. We are no longer his sword servants. He no longer deserves it. The other strong men spoke one after another, their words full of disrespect. They were prepared for the worst. At the same time, the Dugu clan was in the dungeon. A middle-aged strong man with disheveled hair was chained to a giant bronze pillar. His whole body was covered with rusty swords. He is Chen Xiaoran, the leader of the Chen clan and Chen Yu's father. Previously, he took advantage of the time when the black box of the Forbidden City in the Wuhuang realm emitted a shocking sword energy, burned his own sword energy, tore apart the Dugu clan's prison, and sent 3 people out. It was precisely because of this that the Dugu clan became furious and pierced Chen Xiaoran's meridians and acupuncture points with the Sword of Erosion. The Sword of Erosion can dissolve Chen Xiaoran's swordsmanship, making him completely suppressed and like a useless person. But at this moment, even Chen Xiaoran's body was filled with erosion swords, which were faintly trembling. The Sword Master comes out, and thousands of swords fall down. The Sword of Eclipse is no exception. Sword Master, is he born? Chen Xiaoran suddenly raised his head, his face full of excitement. I must see the Sword Master, I must. His whole body was tense, and pain swept through his acupuncture points and meridians like a tide, but he was completely unaware of it. The temple of sacrifice to the world. The visitor is truly extraordinary. Ning Tianji couldn't help but sigh and said. The evil corpse of the Sword Master really appeared in the Wuhuang realm. Chang Sun Changqing whispered, saying. This organization is too deep and has more control than we imagined, maybe we should be more careful. You're worrying too much. Zhang Shanjin opened his mouth and said. The stronger the visitor, the more useful he is to us. When Wu Jianghe from the Wuhuang realm is dead, quickly let them make arrangements to kill Ji Wuden and Chang Sun Bumi as well. Unless these 3 people die, our plans will always be thwarted. They can't wait. Ji Wulu also said calmly. It's not far from our enlightenment. At this moment, the 4 realms and 8 wastelands were affected. Great Brahma wasteland. In the ancient temple on the barren mountain, the old monk whispered. When will the person who saves me show up? All the sword practitioners are here. Savage. Somewhere in a terrifying active volcano. Lava overflowed and volcanoes erupted. And in the center of the crater, in the terrifying lava pool, there is a stone statue. The stone statue looked fat, like a fat man. The statue's buttocks are plumper than those of ordinary people. At this moment, a short man was wielding a huge hammer and hitting the stone sculpture. This man was wearing iron clothes. He was only as tall as an 8 or 9-year-old child, but his arms were very strong. He beat it for a long time, but there was still no change in the stone statue. I have been refining you with lava for millions of years, but I still can't use it. I, Meng Nan, a master of weapon training, feel heartbroken when I see such a good material like you. The short man looked at the ocean and sighed, especially when he stared at the buttocks of the statue, his eyes were gleaming. That's all, although it is a good material for refining weapons, after you turned into stone, you were still marked by evil, so you can't use it. The short man was helpless. Woof, woof woof woof. At this time, in the crater, there was a sudden sound of dogs barking. The short man walked out holding a big hammer. I saw a big black dog, holding a huge piece of divine iron in its mouth, waiting in front. The material of the divine iron is extremely extraordinary, and there is a butt mark on the divine iron platform. Yuan Tian divine iron? What a good thing. The short man's eyes suddenly lit up, he looked at the big black dog and said, "What do you want in exchange?" The big black dog uttered human words and said, "That damn fat man's statue." When the short man heard this, he quickly shook his head and said, "Impossible. I promised the woman known as the End of 10,000 Paths to guard the statue." Even though he was obsessed with weapon refining and liked special weapon refining materials, he would never dare to exchange that statue for it. But the big black dog is anxious. Why is this guy not on the right track? The main thing is that it is only one of the 3 Dao fruits, and it is also the weakest one. The big black dog couldn't help but think bitterly, it's all the fault of that bitch in the main body for dividing his Tao fruit into 3 parts, otherwise, he would have just snatched it away. Thinking of this, it rolled its eyes and couldn't help but say, "You can't use this damn fat man's statue. How about I take you to find a dog? The dog's bones can be used to refine the emperor's Taoist weapons. How about that?" When the short man heard this, his eyes suddenly lit up and he said, "Are there any dog bones like this in the world?" However, he then became a little wary and said, "You didn't lie to me." The big black dog said, "Don't worry, I swear in the name of the 10 gods and spirits, that dog's bones guarantee your satisfaction." Martial Wilderness World. In the Wanli Sword Domain. Ah sneeze. Next to Wu Dade, the big black dog suddenly sneezed, became a little nervous, and murmured, "Wow, why does this emperor feel that something is not right, as if he is obsessed with something?" The big black dog's spiritual sense is so sharp. Wu Dade, on the other hand, stared ahead and said, "Damn dog, this sword master is so strong." The big black dog also looked up. At this moment, the sword master dominates the 10,000-mile sword domain. He has fully recovered and is standing in the void, his stone face looking particularly cold. He looked at Yin Xuan and Dugu looking coldly. "I have never seen a strong swordsman in my previous life." He looked at Yin Xuan and said, "It's worth fighting." Then, his eyes fell on Dugu looking again. "The puppet of the night, the empty soul, you are my alienated life, so naturally it is up to me to kill you." When Dugu looking heard this, he opened his mouth and said, "You have become an evil corpse. But I still want to know, what did you see after you set foot on that road?" He was curious. Wu Zun was the first to take that road and was killed by a black hand. Before he died, he claimed to be that one. Yin Zun also saw a similar truth. That one was swallowed up by the night, twisted and crazy. The world was extinct but he still had big dreams. What did the sword master see again? When the sword master heard this, he said indifferently. You want to know that? I will let you know when you pass away. After saying that, he raised his hand and shouted. My sword is back. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 854. My sword is back. Following the sword master evil corpse's low shout. On Wuji Peak. The burnt black box opened instantly. The moment the box was opened, a shocking sword intent suddenly swept out. With a sword that shocked the world, even the Wuji Peak, which was 10,000 meters high, suddenly collapsed, and the mountains connected to Wuji Peak were flattened at the same time. Extremely scary. I saw a sword slowly floating in the charred black box. That sword was densely covered with cracks. There were even many cracks and holes on the sword body. The whole sword seemed to be broken into pieces and then glued back together. But, even so, the sword still exudes monstrous sword power. Base. At this moment, as if feeling the call of the sword master, the sword sounded softly, turned into a rainbow, and flew into the hands of the sword master in an instant. The sword master lowered his head and stroked the sword gently. I saw a faint black real bone inlaid in the hilt of the sword, which seemed to be the real bone that condensed the broken sword pieces. The sword master's gaze rested on the light black real bone for a moment. This was not his bone. However, he was expressionless and didn't care. My sword is named Wuji. He spoke slowly and then raised his hand. Raise your sword. The sword light rises. The entire sword domain seemed to be boiling, with surging sword energy like waves and endless sword intent like a tide. Wait, maybe you can take my sword. He thrust his sword at Tuguyuking and Yin Xuan. As soon as the sword came out, the entire Wuhuang world trembled instantly, the sky was annihilated, the earth shook, as if it had passed through everything, and the terrifying sword intention swept over like a mighty river. Very good, very strong. When Yin Xuan saw this, his eyes instantly glowed with excitement. The look on his face was like that of a century-old bachelor who suddenly saw the beautiful lady with red fruit. Boy, I will defeat you in your previous life first, and then I will defeat you. Yin Xuan spoke to Tuguyuking, and then took a step forward. At this moment, his whole body was filled with shocking sword intent. Yin Xuan, who had just been described as Luo Tuo, was like a down-and-out scholar. At this moment, his whole body seemed to have turned into a long sword. He didn't have a sword in his hand, but he used his body as a sword to soar into the sky. The sword energy is astounding and seems to be able to suppress the world forever. The evil corpse of the sword master and Yin Xuan, the strongest swordsman, are about to collide. Every end of the road is empty, I will kill them all with one sword. The sword master evil corpse whispered, and the long sword slowly crossed the sky. In the sky, he swept away with a decisive sword. This sentence was left by Jianzun before he died. It was also a sword slashed towards a certain path when he was at the peak of his swordsmanship in his life. This is the pinnacle of his swordsmanship. It was the endless murderous intent that penetrated the endless sea of grey mist, the indomitable step on the ancient road, and the decisive strike when seeing a certain black path. This sword will use up all his life's strength to cut down the eternal illusion, destroy the eternal enemy, and carve out a path of peace for hundreds of millions of people. This sword is so powerful that there is no way to stop it. It surges like the heavens falling, and is as majestic as the surging universe. And Yin Xuan's face revealed a touch of unprecedented appreciation and ecstasy. He clasped his hands together, concentrated his sword, and shattered billions of stars. Yin Xuan's body emitted a brilliant and dazzling sword light. The sword light was extremely dazzling, but it seemed to be nothing. The light from his sword made the world he was in seem to be half virtual and half real. The sky-shattering divine rainbow, like a celestial abyss, lay in front of it. Boom! The supreme sword intent of the supreme sword master swept across, as if rushing into the endless abyss, like a mud cow entering the sea. Xuanhuan stood calmly, and the sword intention of the supreme swordsman could not get closer than 10 steps in front of him. However, Xuanhuan's eyes showed an extremely complicated look at this moment. There was exclamation, admiration, appreciation, and even a touch of deep regret. He observed the sword intention of the supreme sword master and saw countless scenes. That was a generation of supreme beings who had no time to go further, so they had to step forward and face the powerful enemies in the world. That was a generation of sword cultivators who never took a step back in the face of the gray ocean. Their swords shocked powerful enemies in the sky. Their cultivation level was so high that they actually defeated all the gray ancient roads. That was a generation of heroes who traveled through the heavens, killed all enemies, and actually set foot on that legendary road. They even struck out a shocking sword towards a certain black path. I take back what I said before. Xuanhuan spoke word by word. At this moment, his eyes were extremely solemn and he said, "If we are in the same realm, I may not be able to defeat you. From your sword intention, I can see the fearless way of swordsmanship. It's a pity, you died too early. You deserve to be told, God is jealous of talents." It's hard to imagine that a conceited swordsman like Xuanhuan would make such comments. In fact, at this moment, he really felt admiration in his heart. The way of swordsmanship he practiced was to follow one's heart naturally. Therefore, when the grey mist sea was in great turmoil, he chose to live in seclusion and bury his head in silence. However, the sword master, who was not as strong as him in the past, decided to leave and fight with his life. If it hadn't been for the accident, perhaps in that era, the sword master's fearless swordsmanship would have shined brightly. Even he, Xuanhuan, may only be able to look up to the glory of the sword lord in the end. As for the sword master, at this moment, there was just grey mist boiling in his eyes, and the broken sword was buzzing, and he said word by word, "Cut, false, false." The energy of swordsmanship increased 100 times. Xuanhuan shook his head and said, "This sword is indeed strong enough to threaten the old me. But, I see the one at the end of 10,000 paths, who opened the abyss of heaven with one sword, and I have already achieved something. I have cultivated the Tianyuan sword qi. Although it cannot be compared with the peerless stunningness of the real Tianyuan with one sword, but, your sword cannot cut off the real illusion, and it cannot cut my Tianyuan." He was very indifferent. With his body as a sword, a vast rainbow, and an invincible field, he remained motionless even though the supreme swordsmanship swept over him with 100-fold sword intent. The two of them are spending time. However, Xuanhuan is very confident. Because, his Tianyuan sword qi, in a sense, he is the disciple of the one at the end of 10,000 paths. He could never forget that woman back then, who faced all the enemies in the sea of grey mist alone. When the road of endless grey mist extended and her scarlet eyes spread all over the sky, she slashed out with a sword and opened the abyss of heaven. Tianyuan's sword cut off the ages. He has been guarding the evil corpse of the sword master for many years, and he has been realizing that the sword opened the abyss. You give up the sword. You don't lose. It's just that I live longer than you. Xuanhuan looked at the evil corpse of the sword master with sympathy. However, sword master evil corpse did not give up. However, at this moment, a voice sounded faintly and said, "If you two consume each other for too long, it will be boring. Stop and take my sword." This is Tuguyuking's voice. At this moment, he is already standing in the sky. There was an extra pen in his hand. It was the Huangtian brush that Li Fan made for him using chicken feathers from the small courtyard. There are only 3 such pens in the small courtyard. Xiling's phoenix feather brush, Duguyuking's Huangtian brush, and Lin Zhuchen's fire god brush. Duguyuking used his pen as his sword and the sword master's endless sword domain as the rice paper. When he raised his pen, he affected the endless sword energy in the sword master's domain. His realm is no more than Rokuzo, but now he can use the domain sword energy of the Supreme Swordsman to exert the power of the Supreme Swordsman. Every end of the road is empty, I will kill them with one sword. Duguyuking activated the Huangtian brush, mobilized the sword master Qi, and wrote stroke by stroke in the air. His whole person has become detached from other things, concentrating on meditation, and the way he writes is the 5 books of Dayan. His mind echoed the master's words before leaving. Based on regular script, we can deduce the method of running script. Every word touches the earth thousands of miles away. At this moment, the line of words that originally appeared because of the burnt black iron box suddenly collapsed, just like the words written on the thin sand, blown away by the strong wind. Seeing this scene, Sword Master Evil Corpse couldn't help but look towards Duguyuking with his empty eye sockets. Better than the way you were in your previous life. Yin Xuan was also slightly surprised. The words on the earth were left by the evil corpse of the Sword Master before his death, and represented his swordsmanship. Now, it has been destroyed. This means that the swordsmanship displayed by Duguyuking at this moment is superior to that of Sword Master Evil Corpse. And Duguyuking had already written the first word. Road. As soon as this word came out, hundreds of millions of sword lights suddenly appeared at Duguyuking's feet. It was the imprint of endless swordsmanship. The ups and downs condensed and turned into a great avenue of sword intent. Then, write it out word for word. Finish. Head. All. Suyu. Foolish. The first sentence has been written. At the end of the road, it's all nonsense. His characters are like dragons and snakes, like dragons stretching across the eternal sky. The sky-wide sword intent formed under his feet seemed to have turned into an endless waterfall of ladders to heaven, and vaguely, there seemed to be illusory roads reflecting them, like connecting the past and present, and running through the sky. At the end of those illusory roads, there seemed to be illusory kendo palaces. Mysterious. He wrote the same words as in his previous life, but showed completely different miracles. Yin Xuan was shocked and said, "What kind of swordsmanship is this? It actually attracts the swordsmanship of all heavens to reflect it." He was shocked. In the past, when he was practicing the Tianyuan sword Qi, he also had such strange phenomena. However, there are not so many paths to the all-heaven sword, let alone the palace at the end of the all-heaven sword path. When he was shocked, Duguyuking had already finished writing the second sentence. I will kill him with one sword. As soon as this sentence came out, suddenly, the shadow of the path of the heavenly sword was directly destroyed. Including the palace at the end of the road, it was annihilated silently and turned into nothingness. And at the end of the Kendo road under Duguyuking's own feet, a palace condensed with 10,000 sword brands, appeared almost materially. That is the ultimate celestial phenomenon caused by Duguyuking. At the moment when this ultimate celestial phenomenon appeared, the sword intent surged and struck directly at Yin Xuan and the Sword Lord Evil Corpse. It's really, I've seen a ghost, I've seen a paradise. At this moment, Yin Xuan's eyes were filled with surprise and joy. He had been waiting for the path of swordsmanship for eternity, and now, it actually appeared. However, when he saw that the terrifying Kendo waterfall was coming, his expression changed drastically and he said in a loud voice, "Can we stop fighting? Let's discuss it. If you surrender, you will lose half the money." However, he had no choice. All the Tianyuan sword Qi in his body exploded to resist this sword. The palace at the end of the sword path, how could it be? The stone-skinned face of the evil corpse of the sword master showed an unparalleled look of shock, as if he had woken up from a big dream. No. There is no way forward on the road of swordsmanship, only evil spirits are waiting. The one who has turned into a ghost is waiting to devour everything. All roads in the world are completely impassable. Why, you are just my silent shadow, why can you get through? He was puzzled, angry, sad, as if thousands of emotions burst out from his dead heart. He raised his sword and slashed towards Tuguyuking's sword path, the heavenly waterfall. Boom! The sword burst out, but the entire sky seemed to turn into a black hole. No one can see. All worlds are silent. Even Wu Date and Wu Xiaoqin below could not help but close their eyes. After a long time, Wu Date just opened his eyes and saw that the endless sword domain of the sword master had dissipated. Yin Xuan looked exhausted and fell to the ground in front of him. He picked up the wine bottle and drank heavily, breathing a little quickly. The sword lord Evil Corpse was also kneeling on the other side, using the cracked Wuji sword in his hand to support himself. In the sky, Tuguyuking slowly put pen to paper. It's not that you two are too weak, it's that my master is too strong. If you two go together, you are still not as good as my master. If you lose in front of my master's way, it is not a shame for you. He spoke calmly. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 855. The sword's will is overwhelming. Spread throughout the ancestral world. In the martial world, all living beings feel the supreme pressure. The ultimate palace of swordsmanship appears in the world, attracting all living beings to worship it. At the same time, the 4 regions and 8 wastelands felt it. Outside the Wuhuang world, somewhere in the void, the evil corpse of Wu Zun appears, triggering the ultimate celestial phenomenon of swordsmanship. On a secret warship, Elder Ren Cheng, the inner sect of the Prohibition, showed a smile on his lips. The organization guessed it right. That thing does have a miraculous effect on the sword master. It can make him appear on his own without having to look around for it. Haha, according to the organization's intelligence, Wu Zun's evil corpse will be affected by the things in the box, causing a catastrophe. A mere Wu Jiang, he will definitely die. He murmured in his heart, then turned his head to look at Song Ji Yuan and Ao Wushuan, and said, "You two, are you ready?" A smile appeared in his eyes. Now, all it takes is to send the bones of the Forbidden Lord in to absorb the energy of the evil corpse so that the Forbidden Lord's bones can be nourished. Hearing this, Ao Wushuan suddenly felt uneasy. He looked at the Wuhuang realm in front of him, which was called hesitation. On the other side, it is also somewhere in the void outside the Wuhuang world. An old man's face became extremely solemn, and his eyes were filled with fear as he looked at Wuhuangja. There are indeed ghosts in this martial world. The evil corpse of the sword master actually appeared here. These visitors are really very deep. Fortunately, I didn't go there rashly, otherwise, I might have died in this world. He felt a little scared. But then, he suddenly felt a chill again. Damn it, who is using my name to do things? He is panicking now. After all, according to the news obtained from Changsun Fumi, the inspector's big move this time, seems to be to deal with him. He couldn't help but recall the blame on himself once again. After obtaining the martial master's method, he killed the spiritual king of the martial clan, destroyed the martial clan's dojo, and even threatened to train the current martial master. Each bite is getting bigger and bigger. I hope the truth will come out soon. I, Lao Wu, never want to take the blame again. He couldn't help but murmur. If you add some more blame, who knows how crazy the forbidden visitors and the world's sacrifice temple will be to pursue you. True ancestor realm. The ultimate celestial phenomenon of swordsmanship, Sword Master has really appeared. Many masters of the Dugu clan were very excited. I hope Dugu Song Temple and the others can bring back the Sword Master technique. Haha, the Chen clan has been imprisoned by us. The Dugu clan is his only descendant. He will definitely pass on the method of reaching the sky to us. Well, The premise is that Chen Yu and the other two people are not allowed to meet Sword Master, lest Sword Master knows the truth. Everyone is looking forward to it. In an underground cage. This is the summons of Tongtian's Sword Dao. Chen Xiaoran's tired and haggard eyes flashed with unparalleled excitement. And at this moment, martial wilderness world. The overwhelming sword power has dissipated. Above the void, there was still a vague shadow of the ultimate palace of swordsmanship, but it eventually slowly dissipated. The Wanliwiji mountains have now been reduced to flat ground by the battle just now. The cracks in the earth are like canyons, with terrifying abyss opening up. Yin Xuan sat on the ground, took off the wine bottle from his waist, and drank heavily, still out of breath. He looked at Tuguyuking in the sky and said angrily. They say you lose half if you surrender, but this doesn't work. You have understood the supreme swordsmanship and triggered the ultimate celestial phenomenon, do you still feel pleasure if you defeat me? Ah! Tell me what other pleasure you have. Do you feel pleasure? He took another sip and spoke calmly, without any shame or awe. Because the path of swordsmanship he took was to pursue whatever he wanted. Follow your heart naturally, without restraint, and say whatever you think. Duguyuking stood in the air. Hearing the words, he couldn't help but think for a moment and said. Although there is no pleasure, I just want to hit you, can't I? When Yin Xuan heard this, he was so angry that the wine in his mouth spurted out. He threw the wine bottle aside and said. I'm going to humming, stop drinking, even if I don't drink this wine. Duguyuking smiled slightly, then turned his head and looked at the evil corpse of the sword master on the other side. The evil corpse of the sword master knelt on the ground silently. He used the long sword in his hand to support his body. At this moment, grey mist was flowing in his empty eyes, and there seemed to be a trace of thought and a trace of struggle on his face covered by stone skin. The road to swordsmanship has actually been cleared. No. I saw with my own eyes that the one turned into an evil ghost and entrenched himself on the path of sword practice. Anyone who comes close, will be devoured. Kendo has no future, other paths have no future either. At this moment, there was a hint of vibrato in his words. He is doubting himself. Could it be that I was wrong in the past? Could it be that he was the one who took the wrong path and became the slave of darkness? At this moment, as he questioned himself and recalled the past, endless scenes appeared around him. It was a world where war was raging, grey fog filled the sky was dark, and a long sword cut through the sky thousands of miles away. Countless powerful men from the grey mist world came to attack him, but where the sword light reached, they defeated all enemies. Even though the vast sea of grey fog was almost mute. In the world of grey fog, there are more grey roads to be manifested, to return from unknown places and to kill everything. The sword light split the sky, and the fearless sword path lay across the roads. A majestic man with heroic hair was covered in grey blood. Who dares to come and fight? The sword in the sword master's hand was ups and downs. He looked at the many grey roads, resolutely and fearlessly, and said calmly. Although my realm is weak, if you want to come here, you will have to pay a huge price. I may not be able to kill 1 or 2 people even if I sacrifice my life. Who will die with me? Shouting loudly, the sword light rises and falls. You're just on the road, you just got a glimpse of the truth of cultivation, and you dare to scream with us. From the phantom of a certain grey road, a hand suddenly reached out and unleashed a powerful force that made the entire sea of grey fog tremble, almost killing everything. But the sword master showed no fear in front of this big grey hand. He used all his strength and slashed at the big hand with a sharp sword. Boom! The sword master's sword exploded instantly, turning into a sky full of stars and dissipating into the endless sea of grey mist. And that hand was also chopped off. Even the grey road was shaking slightly. The sword master took a few steps back, with blood at the corner of his mouth. And underestimated you. On that road, A hoarse voice sounded. "Your sword is broken, how can you stop me?" Suddenly, the sword master raised his eyes, and his eyes were filled with sword light. His straight body was emitting sword intent, the essence and blood were burning, and the sword intent was surging. "With your life as your sword, do you dare to give it a try?" He's staring at that road. At this moment, that road was silent. The sword master's sword is broken, but he uses his life as his sword, but it is still very intimidating. There are many gray roads, uncertain, but in the end, no one dares to really cross the border. Use life as a sword to intimidate many paths. Many gray roads have faded away. The sword master turned around and walked away, slashing through the sea of gray mist with his hand. An ancient road slowly emerges. The sword master did not hesitate and stepped onto the ancient road. When he set foot on the ancient road, a black path suddenly emerged. In the black path, sword master instantly saw a certain scene. That scene was very similar to what Yanzun and Wuzun saw. It was a dark place, all light had disappeared, like the end of all worlds, but also like the origin of the universe, cold, dead, and hazy with black mist. The endless black mist turned into a giant hand and gathered to form the black mist throne. On the throne, an indescribable existence sat. That existence is cold and indifferent, as if it is above all life and controls all the ways in the world. Seeing this scene, the Sword Lord was shocked, because sitting on the throne, it's actually that one. Did that person become the King of Darkness? At this moment, a flash of horror flashed in the Sword Master's eyes, and his heart swayed even more. If that person has become twisted and crazy, and has become the King of Darkness, so, are all their efforts and struggles still in use? Faith has collapsed and the light has been extinguished. No. The Sword Master raised his eyes decisively and shouted. I don't believe that that person will fail. He has never failed in his life. Demons and monsters dare to harm my Taoist heart. Every end of the road is empty, I will kill them all with one sword. He yelled angrily. At this moment, he spent all his life, put his hands together, and slashed forward. The sword was so bright that he used his body as a sword to open up the world. At this moment, his fearless heart suddenly emerged, and his whole person broke through at this moment. He surpassed the top level. At this moment, the Taoist Tianchang peeked into the next realm. His Taoist scenery appeared, it was a place shrouded in chaos and mist, as if it were imaginary but not real. In the Taoist landscape, there is an unstoppable road, which is made by Sword Master enlightening the Tao and moving forward again and again. Now, in front of the road shrouded in the fog of chaos, Sword Master suddenly saw something. In his scenic spot, I don't know what kind of terrifying things appeared. No. The Sword Master, who had just broken through and was at his ultimate peak, actually let out an ancient cry of sorrow at this moment. His whole body suddenly sat on the ground, his eyes filled with sorrow and despair. He really turned into a ghost. Stay on every path of practice. Swallow everything, haha, after I set out on the road, I never saw an immortal, a saint, or a god, I only saw a ghost. That was his shadow, his nightmare. The Sword Master who dominates the world, uses life as his sword, and repels many gray roads, is actually crying at this moment. Because he saw extremely terrifying things in the Taoist scenery. The scene on the black path may be a shadow or an illusion, but how can there be falsehood in the Taoist landscape? It is the darkest time of all eternity, and there is no light ahead. The darkest time of all eternity, there is no light ahead. Just when he was filled with grief and anger, a hand suddenly appeared deep in the black path. Pointed out gently. A terrifying blood hole instantly appeared in front of the Sword Master's chest. In the blood hole, the sword intent was violent and messy. The Sword Master was destroyed on the spot. There were still tears in his eyes. All these are scenes from Sword Master's previous life before his death. At this moment, on the land of Wuhuang realm, his body was trembling, and grey mist filled his body. He was struggling, hesitating, thinking hard. No. If his ghost is guarding all the roads, how can he meet the ultimate palace of swordsmanship today? Have I been cheated? The Sword Master's voice is almost waking up. However, at this moment, the sword in his hand seemed to resonate with the Sword Lord's mood. It trembled for a while, and then shattered. At the hilt of the sword, the faint black bone suddenly emitted a mysterious light. In an instant, a world that seemed as if it were imaginary and unreal seemed to be descending from a mysterious place to this real world. Not good. When Xuanhuan saw this scene, his expression changed slightly and he said, "Whose real bones? They actually sneaked across the Tianyuan." On the other side, even the big black dog's dog eyes suddenly narrowed slightly and said coldly, "You are so courageous, not only are you fishing for the evil corpse of the Sword Master, but you also want to peek into this world through the Daoscenic area. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert." Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 856. It seems that a world that does not exist is about to come to this world. In this world, chaos and mist suddenly appeared from somewhere. The fog of chaos is like a dream, untouchable, and will never disappear. The original real space of the surrounding Wuhuang world also became illusory and real due to the arrival of this world. The continuous land has disappeared, and the ruined mountain peaks have disappeared. In this ethereal world, everyone has a sense of unreality. In the misty world, a light black real bone rises and falls uncertainly. "Dead dog, what on earth is this?" Wu Dade's eyes were full of doubts and he couldn't help asking questions. Big Black Dog explained. "Tao Jingdi. After opening the door, you can see your own misty world. This misty world is called the inner scene, and it is also called the Taoist scene. The Taoist scenery is mysterious and unpredictable, which represents the final success of practice. Moreover, Taoist landscapes can blend with reality. And that true bone is the life bone of a certain strong man, which can inspire the Taoist scenery of the owner of the life bone. And the owner of the bones can peek into this world through the Dao scenery, and even descend. From a certain perspective, the role of real bones is similar to that of a dojo. The ultimates in the world sacrifice temple can establish Taoist lands with the help of Taoist temples in the 4 realms and 8 wastelands. The same is true for true bones. The owner of the life bone does not need to cross the boundary in person. A piece of his true bone can carry his Taoist scenery and appear in this world. After hearing this, Wu Dade was stunned for a moment. This was too mysterious. And at this moment, Dao Jing land continues to descend, and thick fog has enveloped this land. It was as if we had entered a foggy day, and our vision was blocked. Even the cultivator's spiritual consciousness was obscured by this fog. Chen Yu, Wu Ziakan, Chen Zhongtian, and others were completely unable to see the surrounding scene clearly. But Tugu Yuking and Wu Dade had piercing eyes. They felt that although this fog was mysterious, it could not blind their perception. "Hey, a road appears there." Wu Dade suddenly spoke and pointed forward. Wherever he pointed, the scene in the misty world around him became clearer and clearer. There, a faint path composed of Tao appeared. At the end of the path, I don't know what world is connected to it. It is deep, mysterious, and undetectable. That path was obviously made up of various roads, but it was as real as a country path. After opening the door, find your own path in the Taoist landscape, step forward, and you will reach the upper road realm. The big black dog explained. Damn it, bad luck, really bad luck. As for Xuanhuan, he was screaming bad luck at this moment. He was quite alert, secretly making sword skills, and seemed to be waiting for the enemy. From the depths of the path, the sound of heavy footsteps slowly came. It seemed like some unknown giant was approaching step by step. The footsteps became clearer and clearer, and the fog also surged. Deep in the mist, a pair of big red lanterns seemed to slowly appear. The vague red light reflected the body of some kind of creature, like a mountain. The red light is getting stronger and stronger. No. Those are a pair of scarlet eyes. Wu Dade was surprised. What is this? Actually walked out of the Taoist scenery? This world makes me feel disgusted. A low roar came from the mist, and the scarlet eyes forced the mist away. The heavy breathing of this creature was like thunder. The creature finally appeared. The body is as tall as a mountain, with 4 hooves, a short tail, gray hair all over the body, a long mouth, sharp and rolled fangs, and scarlet eyes. Holy shit, is this a big wild boar? It's too big. Wu Dade immediately lost his voice and spoke. At first glance, this creature does look very similar to a wild boar. Ignorant human pet, this is the Grey Mist, a Grey Mist race of the same level as the 9-life stone crow and the eternal ring demonic snake. The big black dog spoke and whispered. I actually crossed the threshold of seeing ghosts, I probably seed immortals. But as it spoke, its dog eyes rolled and said. It's a good thing at this level, but we can't let it go. Muttering, it immediately pulled out a piece of dog hair, waved its paw, and landed on Wu Dade and Duguyuking. It is covering up the chi of Duguyuking and Wu Dade. Because the immortal seers coming from the Grey Mist Sea would definitely be able to recognize the identities of Duguyuking and Wu Dade. If the other side knew that the 10 completely dead people were actually reborn, it would cause huge waves. If so, that would be bad. After doing all this, the big black dog sent another message to Yin Xuan. Yin Lao Si, have you ever eaten grey pork? Yin Xuan was on alert and very solemn. When he heard this, he couldn't help being startled, looked at the big black dog, and said. Hui Xiao, can it be eaten? He was born in the Grey Mist Sea and knew this clan very well. Even though he was once very strong, and had competed with some strong men of the same generation from the Grey Jiao tribe, and even killed some Grey Jiao, he still didn't dare to eat it. After eating it, you will be infected with the aura of this clan. When the time comes, who knows what will happen? The big black dog said. Of course, it's delicious. Do you want to try it? Yin Xuan thought for a while and said. My intuition tells me that you want to trick me, but I am really greedy. Tell me first, if I am chased by the Grey Mist Sea, will the person who is number 1 in swordsmanship protect me? He was taking the opportunity to hug his thigh. If the big black dog agrees, he will have to sacrifice his life. After all, with the person who is the best in swordsmanship, Yin Xuan feels, even if the Grey Fog Sea comes, he will not be afraid. The big black dog heard this and said. Why should you use that person to protect you? This emperor said, I will protect you, don't worry. When Yin Xuan heard this, he still felt that this dead dog was deceiving him. Now in his opinion, the one with the best swordsmanship, is the one who has faith. No. Suddenly, he seemed to notice something strange, and couldn't help but glance at the place where the big black dog had lost its hair just now. Then, a flash of surprise flashed across his eyes and he murmured. This dog is hiding so much. He used his true eyes of swordsmanship to gain insight, but found that this big black dog seemed to be far from being as simple as he imagined. Before, the big black dog's hair was so thick and well covered that even he didn't notice it. When the big black dog saw this, he narrowed his eyes and said. Do you want to do it or not? Yin Xuan nodded directly and said. What do you need me to do? The big black dog said to the grey jade that had not yet fully emerged from the mist. Him to death, lure his true form here, and eat his meat. Yin Xuan nodded immediately. Finally, the grey beast completely appeared in the Dao scenery. Scarlet eyes scanned the heavens. Is this the world that woman protects? Haha, it is said that woman left a terrifying legacy in this world, which made even the grey mist sea excited. Looking at it now, where is she? Hui Jiao whispered, and then his eyes swept over everyone. It saw the Sword Lord. Haha, the once famous sword master, is now just a slave. There was ridicule in Hui Jian's scarlet eyes, and he said, "Kneel down. Kneel down for the darkness." At this moment, the sword master felt as if he had lost his soul. Just a moment later, he was already shaken and about to wake up from his evil state. However, now under the influence of Hui Jiao, the fog is thick, causing him to fall into the quagmire again. Everything has been destroyed, darkness rules the universe. He murmured, about to be completely lost again. "Kneel down." Hui Jian shouted, "Have you forgotten your master in the darkness?" However, at this moment, a sword light suddenly slashed towards Hui Jian. "Kneel down, uncle." Hui Jian was suddenly startled and turned around to see Xuanhuan. It was immediately surprised and said, "Sword ancestor. They guessed right, you really hid in this world. I, finally found you. Good night." You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 857. Hui Jian was shocked when he saw Xuanhuan. It comes from the Grey Mist Sea. It is very clear that Xuanhuan is a famous swordsman in the Grey Mist Sea. Revered as the sword ancestor. The great turmoil eons ago was said to have been caused by a problem with the source of the cultivation path. At that time, the sword ancestor and a dozen peerless experts never showed up and were avoiding trouble. There are rumors that in the last years of great turmoil, Xuanhuan and others were captured and taken away by the woman known as the End of 10,000 Paths. Today, there is even speculation in the Sea of Grey Mist that the dozen or so powerful people should be in the true ancestor realm. It may even be related to that woman's shocking situation. Grey Mist Sea, why are you so impatient that you want to send a real bone? It should be noted that to achieve this step, many extremely powerful people have paid an extremely heavy price. It was because some unusual signs were detected on the other side of the Grey Mist Sea. The woman who opened the abyss with one sword back then most likely left an unimaginable backhand in the true ancestor realm. There are many rumors about that backhand. Some people say that her backhand is related to the 12 evil corpses, and there is a big problem with the 12 evil corpses she took away. Some people say that the mysteriously missing sword ancestor and a dozen other powerful men have become her slaves, guarding the true ancestor realm. Others say that she never died and left a body in the true ancestor realm. If she attacks rashly, she will definitely be greeted by her sword. No matter which rumor is true, the strongest people in the Sea of Grey Fog cannot sit idly by. Especially now, Tianyuan is about to restart, and the Grey Mist Sea and the ancestral realm are about to reconnect. Even though eternity has passed, the woman known as the End of 10,000 Paths still looks like an insurmountable peak, standing in front of the Sea of Grey Mist. They don't feel at ease if they don't figure out what she left behind in the true ancestor realm. Therefore, as soon as the weak connection between the Grey Mist Sea and the true ancestor realm was re-established, they sent the Sword Master's sword over at all costs. At the same time, it also comes with the bones of the Grey Fox. The Sword Master's sword can draw out the evil corpse of the Sword Master. At the same time, let Hui Jian come over and find out what the backhand the woman left behind. And now, Hui Jian actually saw Sword Ancestor. Does this mean that the legend is true? When that woman left, she found a dozen peerless masters from the Sea of Grey Mist to protect this world. Sword Ancestor, you are indeed here, why did you attack me? Hui Jian was furious and said. Don't forget that you are also from the Grey Mist Sea, and you are also one of ours. However, Xuanhuan said coldly. I'm the one who killed you. The sword light slashed into the Dao scenery. Boom. The mist stirred, and Huijian opened his huge mouth and sprayed out streams of grey leather to resist Xuanhuan's sword light. After all eternity, you still just saw a ghost. Haha, it seems that the rumors are true. There was a problem with the cultivation path back then. You backed down and waited until today. You missed the golden age, I overestimated you. However, after a moment of fighting, Huijiao started laughing ferociously. Compared to Xuanhuan, this grey dog is considered a rising star. When it was young, it had already heard the legend that Xuanhuan and others were invincible. But it didn't expect that Xuanhuan today was just seeing ghosts. Obviously, when the great turmoil came, Xuanhuan and others chose to avoid disaster, and were finally captured by the woman at the end of 10,000 paths. As a result, these powerful men who were once famous in the Grey Mist Sea missed the most splendid gold in the Grey Mist Sea. In this great world, cultivation has stagnated. Being trapped in the true ancestor realm also blocks your progress. You just saw a ghost and dared to set foot in my Taoist scenery. Do you really think that you are still an invincible sword master? You are already behind the times. Huijian sneered. In the entire Dao scenery, the path formed by the Dao erupted with terrifying Dao power, arousing thousands of grey lights and forming a big grey net that wanted to disintegrate everything. I am the master of Daojing land. Huijian shouted, and the sword light from Xuanhuan sank into the big net and was directly disintegrated. Huijian seemed to have walked further than Xuanhuan in the Taoist scenery. Dominate. Xuanhuan smiled and said. Even if Yin stands still for eternity, I can still kill you with a snap of my fingers. After saying that, his sword energy was like a rainbow, sweeping over everything, and he stabbed out with his sword again. Ridiculous. Huijiao was disdainful and stretched out its claws, but the next moment, its expression suddenly changed, because Xuanhuan's sword actually pierced its web of Taoism. How can this be? Huijiao was shocked. He had already worshipped ghosts and seed immortals, which was beyond Xuanhuan's realm. However, the other party could actually break his rules in his Taoist scenery. When it was shocked, that sword intent had already passed through its body. Huijiao was directly chopped into two. I thought you were so strong. It turned out that you used the ghost worship method to pass the test of seeing ghosts. If you had used this method, I would have gone to the other side of the road. You little wild boar, how dare you make such a noise? Xuanhuan looked at Huijian with disdain in his eyes and said. I'm going to cut you into pieces today. After saying that, he moved his sword directly, and the sword light swarmed in, cutting the grey fish into 4 more pieces. Xuanhuan, you are looking for death. You treat me like this because you want to live forever. Huijiao is furious. What is in the Taoist landscape at this moment is not its true body, but just a clone. Huijiao is very cautious and does not dare to enter this world directly, fearing that he will be killed by the backhand left by the one at the end of the world. But now it's really angry. Xuanhuan actually insulted him like this. You will fight to the death? Are you worthy of it? Stinky wild boars, from now on, I will kill everyone I see and eat their meat. Xuanhuan spoke disdainfully, cutting the grey fudge with a knife. When Huijian heard this, his whole body trembled and became furious. He was completely angry. I won't kill you, I swear I won't do it. Huijian was furious, and suddenly, the entire Daojing area started to tremble. The spaces in the heavens are changing, and the rules of the avenue are intertwining. Now, on the other side of the abyss, in a world filled with grey fog. Xuanhuan. A roar shook the endless grey mist. What happened? What did you see in that world? Did you find anything related to that woman? Many beings with scarlet eyes were asking questions. But in the gray fog, a huge creature trembled with anger and said, "I met Xuanhuan." Other beings were surprised. It seems that the legend is true. He, martial ancestor Luo Xing Chen, Yanzu Chang, etc. were captured by that woman and taken to the ancestral realm. They must be related to that woman's backhand. Everyone spoke one after another. And the behemoth roared. He took refuge in that world and tried to kill my clone. How dare you insult me like this? I will cross the line and kill him. It said and moved. Don't be impulsive, Sword Ancestor is extraordinary. The past was full of bad luck. Many beings opened their mouths to exhort. It's no big deal, he's still in the ghost realm, I'm going to take off his head and make everything related to him in the grey mist sea disappear. After saying that, the behemoth seemed to be connected to some kind of ethereal world and entered it. What? Sword Ancestor, you just saw ghosts. It seems that if they missed the golden age after the great turmoil, they have disappeared from all living beings. Haha, if that's the case, then there's nothing terrible about the backup plan left by the woman at 10,000 Paths End. Wait for Huihu to go over and take a look, kill the Sword Ancestor and cheer up the grey mist sea. Many beings are looking forward to it. Immediately afterwards, the world in Wuhuang realm roared, as if something huge had crashed into a puddle. In the Dao scenery, the paths formed by Dao are glowing fiercely at this moment, extending deeper, as if connecting to the other world. As if the curtain had been lifted and the void was penetrated, a wild and strange aura suddenly came from the end of the road. I saw a substantial grey animal coming along the path. The path seemed to be unable to bear its weight and was trembling. The Taoist scenery is shaking. Huijiao's true body has arrived. Seeing the scene in the Dao Jingdi, it suddenly became furious. Because Yansuan has chopped its clone into meat paste. Yansuan, I'm going to kill you. At this moment, Yansuan raised his eyes and looked at Huijian, then turned around with a smile, looked at the big black dog and said, "It's your turn." Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 858. Huijiao's true body has appeared. It was so angry that it exuded overwhelming power, causing the scenery to shake violently. If the Daojing land hadn't enveloped this place and isolated it from the real world outside, its power at this moment alone would be enough to shake hundreds of millions of miles of earth. Yansuan, I want to eat you. Seeing that Yansuan actually turned around and wanted to leave, Huijian became even more angry and charged directly from the Dao's path, arriving in an instant. You bitch, why don't you take action? Yansuan looked at the big black dog and spoke angrily. In terms of strength, he still only saw ghosts and had never passed that level, but he was also not afraid of this grey beast. Even if the opponent had seen the immortal, he still had the confidence to kill it. However, he has always been only interested in sword fighting, and has little interest in fighting other than kendo. Seeing that the horrifying fangs of the grey beast were already attacking, and the big mouth had opened, spewing out the overwhelming power of Taoism, Yansuan had no choice but to turn around, transforming his body into a sword and preparing to face the enemy again. However, right now. Woof, woof 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 woof. Ouch, 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 woof, woof. A series of thunderous dog barks, mixed with the roar of some ancient beast, suddenly sounded. This kind of dog barking is so deafening that it almost shatters a person's soul. Huijian, who was charging madly, was suddenly shocked at this moment, as if his soul was frightened away by something. He was sluggish and paused. He subconsciously raised his eyes and looked forward. In front of me, I saw a big black dog that looked like a mountain. It didn't know when it appeared. It sat arrogantly, its noble dog head was filled with disdain, and its eyes radiated a frightening light. Jianzhu. Huijiao murmured subconsciously. At this moment, it seemed to have lost its mind. In its body, a soul came out of its body. At this moment, the big black dog said to Duguyuking, "Do it." Duguyuking no longer waited, and the Huangtian pen in his hand suddenly crossed. A golden red flame swept away instantly. No. The Grey Yuan Shen suddenly woke up at this moment, with a look of horror in his eyes. When he saw the golden flame coming, his liver and gallbladder were broken, and he lost his voice. Phoenix is really hot. How is this possible? How can there be a phoenix in this world? The golden red flame burned its soul. Ah! Hui Jiao's shrill scream suddenly sounded. The true fire of the phoenix can burn everything in the world, including Yuan Shen. Once ignited, Hui Jiao's soul cannot escape at all and is quickly devoured. No. I don't want to die. You dead dog, you are pretending to be the ancestor of our clan, I will kill you. The grey cat went crazy. It raised its hoof with great difficulty, trying to crush the big black dog to death. It hates the big black dog with all its heart. It is a dignified seer of immortals, and should be an invincible existence in this world, but in the end, he was actually tricked and is about to die. His death is so frustrating and ridiculous. It hasn't even shown its true strength yet. However, its hoof did not step out after all, and the golden red flames had completely swallowed up its soul. In the end, Hui Jiao's soul only had time to let out a scream and disappeared into thin air. He was burned by the phoenix true fire and died completely. Boom! At this moment, it was like the tide receding, and the surrounding misty world suddenly disappeared rapidly. When Hui Jiao dies, his Taoist scenery will also leave the real world. The sunlight from Wuhuang realm shone instantly, and in everyone's eyes, the originally broken earth appeared. Everything that just happened to the Taoist scenery was like a dream. However, there was a huge corpse lying on the ground in front of him. It's as high as a hill. That was Hui Jian's corpse. The soul was dead but the body was unscathed. Wow, I'm so prosperous. I haven't eaten it for many years, I miss it. The big black dog returned to its normal size. Looking at the grey dog, the dog's eyes were filled with salivation. Wu Dade, who was next to him, looked at the big black dog in shock and said, "Damn dog, how did you do that?" A strong man like Hui Jian, who defies the will of heaven, actually made the big black dog die. Even Yin Suan looked at Dehe solemnly. Hearing this, the big black dog raised its head high and said, "It's okay to tell you if I'm a pet. The ancestor of the grey frog was just a meal on my plate back then. Even his ancestors ate it, and he still couldn't deal with it. That's called a bastard." Wu Dade didn't believe it and said, "Damn dog, I don't know you yet. You're just bragging." The big black dog got angry and bared his teeth. "My dear, your butt is itchy." When Wu Dade heard this, his buttocks shrank subconsciously and he did not dare to say anything. But Yin Suan was thoughtful at this moment, with a hint of solemnity on his face. He felt, what the big black dog said was probably true. The barking made by the big black dog just now contained the roaring technique of the supreme ancestor of the Hui clan. That's why Hui Jian can be shocked. After all, the more powerful the race, the stricter the bloodline hierarchy. The oppression from the supreme ancestral roar can even order the life and death of future generations. The skills of a creature like the grey fox are often hidden in its true bloodline bones. This dog has probably really eaten the flesh and blood of the ancestor of the grey fox. What on earth is this piece of shit? It feels like, I can't see through it. He couldn't help but murmured. Duguyuking, at this moment, looked at the evil corpse of Sword Master and shouted. The lost corpse is still not awake yet. He holds the Huangtian brush, and the true meaning of swordsmanship reappears. Use the way of the sword to summon the evil corpse of the Sword Master. The evil corpse of the Sword Master was still kneeling on the ground at this moment. His empty eyes were struggling. In the Dao Jingdi, I saw with my own eyes the person who turned into a fierce ghost. The inner demons caused to him back then were really too big to get rid of. Unlike Yanzun and Wuzun, when he set foot on that road and saw the black path for the first time, he saw the one who had become the king in the darkness. He didn't believe it at all, and he even slashed towards the black path. A sword. However, when he broke through, he saw an extremely terrifying scene in the Tao scenery representing the path of cultivation. That one really turned into a ghost. The more fearless a person is, the more his Taoist heart is as firm as iron. Once his Taoist heart collapses and he starts to be afraid, that fear will be more difficult to get rid of than ordinary people. I want to open another Taoist scene, and I want to see it myself. The sword master shouted, and then he closed his eyes suddenly. The space changes, and a world that seems to be ethereal or real appears. The sword master's Taoist scenery has arrived and enveloped this place. The grey fog filled the air, and this inner realm looked like ruins. Cracks are everywhere, broken walls are in ruins, and the mist is desolate and bitter. The path of Tao is broken and cut off, unable to extend deeper. At that time, the sword master's Taoist heart had collapsed, so the Taoist scenery was destroyed on the same day. At this moment, looking at the desolate and withered scene in the Daojing land, Jianzun's empty eye sockets seemed to be startled for a moment. Then, he raised his eyes and looked deeper. Even though the Daojingdi was destroyed, he believed that the ghost should still be there. Not knowing what he thought of, his body trembled slightly. But then he clenched his fists. I must see. Is it true, or false? He kept moving forward along the broken path of the fearless swordsmanship, and arrived at the place where he saw ghosts in the past. There was nothing in that place. There is no ghost, just one word. The sword master was stunned on the spot. Duguyuking and others looked intently and vaguely saw that someone had clearly written a black word with black blood on the sword master's sword path. Fan. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 859. The dilapidated Dao scenery, the broken sword road, where the sword master once saw ghosts. But the ghost that destroyed sword master's Taoist heart was not seen, but only a black word. Fan. Seeing this scene, everyone was shocked. Is that the word fan? Duguyuking was slightly startled, but then he shook his head and said, no, it's not fan. It's just that it looks like fan. The person who wrote it wanted to write fan, but in the end he didn't actually write it. Because the word fan is written in an ugly way, twisted and skewed, and the structure is scattered. If you look closely, you may even feel that it does not completely form the word fan at all, but just the strokes barely put together. Judging from the twisted traces, it is easy to find that the person who wrote it seemed to be unable to write the word fan, so he used great magic power to activate the black blood to form a character similar to the word fan. Has anyone ever attempted to write down the name of the master before, eons ago? Duguyuking murmured, he felt that it must be so. Dead dog, isn't it impossible to write master's name and taboo? The words of all ages cannot be carried. Wu Dade looked at the big black dog with a puzzled look. When Xuanhuan found his suicide note written in Xuanhuan cipher text, the peach tree in the courtyard once said, the writings of the heavens throughout the ages must not touch the master. The big black dog looked at Wu Dade with contempt and said, I want you to read more, you ignorant person, don't you see? Those strokes don't really make up the word at all. As it spoke, it became very solemn and said, however, the shape of this character is very close to the character related to the owner, logically speaking, it cannot be done. No one in the universe can imitate the master's words, unless. A look of surprise flashed in the dog's eyes and he said, unless the black hand wrote it with the blood of the master. As soon as this statement came out, Duguyuking and Wu Dade were both shocked. The character on the Sword Master's path to the sword was actually written with the Master's blood. This is amazing. They were all stunned for a moment. To them, Master represents invincibility and faith. All along, no matter how terrifying the enemy or how big the conspiracy, it was not worth mentioning in front of the Master. But if this word is written with Master's blood, doesn't it mean that Master was bleeding and injured? Who can harm Master in all eternity? Duguyuking murmured. Wu Date also shook his head and said, Dead dog, did you see it wrong? How could it be Master's blood? Master is invincible. However, the big black dog's eyes were expressionless and he said, Human pet, what do you know? On the other side of the road, there is a bark, woof, woof, woof. The words after exist were directly distorted by some force and turned into a series of dog barks. This made the big black dog feel even more surprised in the dog's eyes. This means that this world cannot bear the cause and effect related to those things. Even if you say it, it won't work. However, the big black dog continued. Not even the Lord of Reincarnation, the unparalleled powerhouse who came from the other way, can survive. Even the one at the end of 10,000 paths is astonishing for eternity, and can even break the eternal deadlock. Now he can only reappear next to his master. In that kind of place, the master will be injured, even. It didn't go on, and the words were heavier than ever. Wu Date and Duguyuking both felt a deep sense of coldness. What kind of place, what kind of enemy? It can make even master injured. Even. That's not right, dead dog. It's so dangerous. How did you, a dead dog, survive? Are you bragging again? Wu Date suddenly spoke and came to his senses. Duguyuking couldn't help but look at the big black dog, very suspicious. The big black dog was only one of the 10 spirits back then. He couldn't even resist the one at the end of 10,000 paths. How did he survive? However, the big black dog shook his head and said, This emperor suppressed countless roads, killed countless enemies, and became immortal. Eternal loneliness, the desolation of the heavens. How can you understand the scenery in this? Wu Date was itching with hatred. This damn dog was pretending. But they also saw that there were too many designs in those things, and the big black dog seemed unwilling to reveal them. In fact, if it were made too specific, it would turn into a series of dog barks. This dog actually came back from that side of the road. As for Yin Xuan, his face was extremely solemn. He knows very well what this means. That road, not even the dozen of them who were the most powerful men in the sea of grey fog dared to step on it. This dog has actually been there. Is it going to shock the world? For a moment, he felt deeply that this dog was definitely more than what it looked like. The water was very deep. Even though he was only one of the 10 spirits in the past, he still came back alive after a trip to the other side of the road. Who knows how terrifying it is now? He decided that he would never offend the big black dog in the future. At this moment, the sword master stared blankly at the word, his face covered with stone skin showing a myriad of emotions. Reluctance, regret, anger. I was actually deceived back then. It's an illusion, someone has tampered with their hands and feet on the path of practice. The sword master murmured, clenching his fists and wishing he could fight again. The man has returned and picked me up from the long river of time. I have got his old man to preach. This pen was created by his old man. Duguyuking spoke softly. The sword master turned back and looked at Duguyuking, saw the pen in Duguyuking's hand, and saw the heaven-reaching sword energy surrounding Duguyuking's body. That person didn't become a ghost. What he saw in the past was just an illusion. That one is still alive. I have been reborn, ha ha, ha ha ha. The sword master laughed loudly. At this moment, he felt an unprecedented relief. So what if I die? There is still hope and light in this world. It's not over yet. The sword master suddenly erased that character completely from his broken path of swordsmanship. The one who never turned into a ghost, he is still there. I will die without regrets. It was at this moment that his chi movement completely changed. Boom! The sword master's aura suddenly vibrated, and a shocking sword intent swept across the 9 heavens and 10 lands. He stood in the Taoist scenery. At this moment, the Taoist scenery roared, matching his thoughts, and sending out a mighty force. The broken Dao scenery seems to have been reconstructed, the path of swordsmanship blooms again, and the broken Dao scenery fragments around it are reconnected one by one. The sword master's Taoist heart was re-established, and the road to the sword was also reconnected. At this moment, his stone skin dissipated, the grey mist was refined by the Dao Jingdi, and he returned to normal. His majestic appearance was the same as that of Dugu Yuking, but with the addition of a calmness that had experienced the vicissitudes of life, and a sharp edge that was bathed in the enemy's blood. Yun. The road is reconnected, and we can see the road ahead again. Who would have thought that back then, it was just an illusion that obscured my eyes. The sword master was filled with endless emotion. He turned his head, looked at Dugu Yuking, and said, "Send hello to master for me." After saying that, he turned around and left. The Taoist scenery disappeared quickly, and a sacred bridge composed of an orderly avenue appeared out of nowhere. The sword master stepped onto the sacred bridge and disappeared immediately. Soon, the sword master arrived at the true ancestor realm. The world feels it and is paying attention. Sword master is here. The third supreme being born. I have a hunch that he will also go to the temple of sacrifice. Many people are talking. As expected, Dugu Yuking appeared directly in the world's sacrifice state. His energy overflowed and he was forced out of the sacrifice temple. Sword master, what do you want to do? Ning Tianji's voice sounded gloomily. The sword master said calmly, "Come and see." Ning Tianji sneered and said, "See? You're not welcome here." The sword master raised his eyebrows slightly and said, "Are you qualified to talk about welcome? Don't you want a fight? You 5 can come together. All 5 together." As soon as these words came out, Ning Tianji and others in the giant bronze palace were almost furious. "I can't bear it anymore. Do you really think that the 10 gods are great? I am also the ultimate one." Ning Tianji's big hand suddenly poked out from the temple of sacrifice and moved towards the sword master to suppress it. However, the moment this big hand appeared, sword master took a quick look at it. In his eyes, the sword intent exploded, as if it could cut through the sky. Ah! A shrill scream suddenly sounded. Ning Tianji's big hand was directly chopped off. The giant bronze palace was stunned into silence for a moment. "A bunch of rats." The sword master spoke coldly and said, "What a waste of time. Come on, let's stay alive for a few days." After saying that, he turned around and left. Before leaving, a sword intent swept across the entire sacrifice divine state. In an instant, countless dojos, incense temples, etc. all collapsed. When Yinzun was born, he destroyed countless temples and other temples dedicated to the world, and later rebuilt them. Now it has become a ruin again. But the temple of sacrifice remained silent, no one dared to take action again. The sword master disappeared. Shortly after, the sword master appeared on the Great Wall in the northern part of the true ancestor realm. The bones are piled up for eternity, stretching endlessly to guard the wilderness. The sword master stood in silence for a long time in front of the Great Wall. He was trying to understand how far the one who was at the end of 10,000 paths had gone to kill. The bones fortified the Great Wall, and how many powerful enemies were shattered to pieces. Greetings to the Sword Lord. Greetings to the Sword Lord. Among the Great Wall, there were 18 people who felt this. They stood on the Great Wall and knelt down to the Sword Master, with tears in their eyes. Those are the 18 swords of the Chen clan. They are the greatest pride of the Chen clan. They are all geniuses. However, after becoming famous, none of them stayed in the clan. They all came to the border, endured loneliness, and guarded the Great Wall. I am about to leave, and I will have no worries in this world. Jianyi spoke calmly, and after speaking, he stepped into the abyss. On the Great Wall, paper money flew everywhere, and the swordsman cried. Opening the abyss with one sword, what a courage, what accomplishments! Faintly, one could still hear the sighs of the sword master, and then, Tianyuan became silent and completely silent. The once famous sword master has disappeared. In the empty abyss that blocks everything, a long bridge of light points connects the two sides of the abyss. The third supreme being, the bones fill the abyss. On the great wall of bones, an old man in white robes had scattered all the paper money in the basket. He looked at the long bridge that loomed in the abyss, his old eyes filled with worry. The connection with the grey mist sea has been strengthened, to this extent, maybe someone can sneak over there. The old man looked extremely serious and said, "We must strengthen the guard and we must not let anyone from the grey mist sea come over. The current ancestral world is too weak. General, I will personally lead the men to guard the bridge." Behind him, a middle-aged man in a white cloak spoke. This person is none other than Ji Duan. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 860. The Temple of Sacrifice to the World. I hate. Ning Tianji's face was pale, his breath was disordered, his eyes were full of anger, he was going crazy. 3 shots. As a result, 3 times, I was defeated in one move. Extremely frustrated. Although his big hand was transformed by the spiritual power of chaos, being chopped off by the sword master still hurt his origin. It made his realm a little unstable. Brother Ning, you should be lucky. Changsun Changqing couldn't help but speak, saying, "It's a good thing you didn't go out in person, otherwise, you wouldn't even have the chance to hate me now." After hearing this, Ning Tian was very angry and said, "Changsun Changqing, what do you mean?" Ji Wulu looked gloomy and said, "Enough. Now is not the time to argue. Our top priority is to immediately determine whether the traitor Wu Jianghe is dead. The plan to prove enlightenment, can't let those 3 thieves delay it any longer." Everyone was silent and said nothing more. And at this moment, outside the realm of Wuhuang, Song Ji Yuan, Ao Wushuan, you two immediately take the bones of the Forbidden Lord to the martial wilderness realm. Ren Cheng, the elder of the inner sect who visited the prison, hurriedly urged at this moment. The Sword Lord has been born. If he leaves too late, the bones of the Forbidden Lord will not be able to absorb the evil energy and will not be able to be reborn. But Ao Wushuan and Song Ji Yuan both looked ugly at this moment. Because, the aura exuding from the martial wilderness world just now was too terrifying, too terrifying. It seems that a supreme being has arrived, and fluctuations beyond cognition appear frequently. There is definitely a great terror. If you go, you will be dead. Elder Ren, otherwise, let's find another place to find the evil corpse, it's not safe here. Ao Wushuan couldn't help but speak to Ren Cheng. Ren Cheng's face turned cold and he said, "Ao Wushuan, do you want to resist the order? Death to those who resist." He didn't care at all about the lives of Song Ji Yuan and Ao Wushuan. In his opinion, these 2 guys are just cannon fodder at the bottom of the organization. They are just lucky enough to persist until now. Ao Wushuan wanted to say something else, but Song Ji Yuan hurriedly said, "As you command, Elder, let's go right now." After saying that, He pulled Ao Wushuan and whispered. Brother Ao, the official level is overwhelming, so let's go ahead. Ao Wushuan was extremely reluctant and glanced at Ren Cheng resentfully. This damn old guy forced himself to die in front of a small mountain village? Elder Ren, I wish you a long life and great blessings to the heavens. After he finished speaking bitterly, he turned around and headed to the Wuhuang realm with Song Ji Yuan. Ren Cheng, who stayed outside the Wuhuang world, looked confused. Is Ao Wushuan crazy? But he didn't think much about it. The Wuhuang realm has become a dead place, haha, when these two cannon fodder bring the bones of the Forbidden Lord in, they will definitely die, but the bones of the Forbidden Lord will also revive. When everything is over, I will go in and look for it. He felt that his plan was perfect. Well, and that damn Wu Jianghe, he should also have disappeared in the Wuhuang world. He couldn't help but smile. But, at this moment, he suddenly felt an inexplicable chill. Wrong. He turned back suddenly and opened his eyes to look. I don't know when, but an arrow made of spiritual energy was shot towards him. Chaos Sunbo. Ren Cheng's expression changed drastically and he turned pale with horror. He also saw Wu Jianghe, who was drawing his bow not far away. Wu Jianghe, you are not dead. However, he only had time to scream before he was shot straight away. It turned into a bloody mist. Wu Jianghe, on the other hand, slowly drew back his bow and said disdainfully. You stupid visitor, want to deal with me? Come on, I'll kill one. Although he didn't dare to go to the martial wilderness world, the people who hunted the forbidden hunters outside, would not be difficult for him. Then he looked at Wuhuangja, but his brows furrowed. This place is very evil, it's better not to go in yet. He decided to wait. Then, he turned and left. Martial wilderness world. Ao Wushuan and Song Ji Yuan finally came in. Damn it, old Song, I feel like this elder is forcing us both to die. Ao Wushuan spoke angrily. Song Ji Yuan sighed. Yes, but there is no way, who made him an inner elder? As he spoke, he looked at Ao Wushuan expectantly and said. Brother Ao, this time, do you think it's okay? To be honest, brother, I'm so weak. Song Ji Yuan was really scared. The various G-forces coming out of the martial world were so terrifying that he felt that even if the ultimate came, he would probably frown. Now, two scumbags, himself and Ao Wushuan, actually dare to explore. This is a fatal rhythm. Ao Wushuan gritted his teeth and said. In this case, let's stick to the old rules. I will bring the bones of the Forbidden Lord there. Wait for me right here. Upon hearing this, Song Ji Yuan suddenly became excited. He held Ao Wushuan's hand, tears filled his eyes, and he said with tears of gratitude. Brother Ao, you are really a good brother to me. Don't worry. As long as I, Song Ji Yuan, have a mouthful of shit to eat from now on, I will have to drink a mouthful of urine from you. Ao Wushuan also wiped away his hot tears and said, Brother Song, as long as you can eat enough, it doesn't matter if I'm thirsty, brother. I go first. After that, he left all the way. Song Ji Yuan looked at Ao Wushuan's resolute and fearless back and couldn't help but wipe his tears again. Brother Ao, if you die, I will not. When he said this, he paused and said. Brother, I'd better live well. After Ao Wushuan ran far away, he quickly found an uninhabited mountain range and hid it. Then, he excitedly took out the jade box containing the bones of the Forbidden Lord. Open it directly and hold it tightly in your hand. In the bones of the Forbidden Lord, a force flowed into his dantian. Suddenly, the 9-story black tower emerged, frantically absorbing the power of the Forbidden Lord's bone. The first level is completely deified. At this moment, Ao Wushuan felt inexplicably that there was an inexplicable connection between his heart and the first floor of this black tower. It seems that the power of the Black Tower can be mobilized somehow. The first level of the Black Tower, the effect is, increased blessings. Ao Wu's eyes lit up, and he naturally learned the effect of this Black Tower. After the first level of deification, the talent and magical power he gained was enhancement. People and things blessed by Ao Xuanhuan will have their attributes improved. For example, after Ao Xuanhuan's blessing, a cultivator who is in a shackles situation can greatly improve his understanding and accelerate his breakthrough. A sharp magic weapon, after being blessed by Ao Xuanhuan, will increase its power and become more indestructible. Ao Xuanhuan's eyes were straight at this moment. Xuanhuan, is this my fault? I wish Ao Xuanhuan. His realm will soar. He spoke directly. If there is such a good thing, you must use it for yourself first. However, he felt completely ineffective. This kind of blessing can't be used on yourself. Ao Xuanhuan immediately felt annoyed. Damn it, do you want to be a good person? Do good deeds and accumulate virtue? This is too much. He was a little angry. At the same time, he felt as if he could use his spiritual consciousness to enter the Black Tower. He couldn't help but raise his eyes and look into the first level of the Black Tower. The first level of the Black Tower is extremely deep. Among them, there is a black platform, and on the platform, there is a young man lying on it. The young man's whole body was locked by the supreme chains in the tower, unable to move, as if he was dead. However, the moment he saw this man, Ao Xuanhuan was all covered in hair. He hurriedly exited the Black Tower and opened his eyes. His face was covered with sweat, and there was a trace of panic in his eyes. The moment he saw the man, he clearly felt a unprecedented panic and fear. It was as if I had seen the end, the most desperate thing. What the hell is that man? Ao Xuanhuan was furious. I originally thought that this Black Tower was my own, a treasure, but now it seems that it is very dangerous. Who is the man locked in the Black Tower? That kind of energy is suffocating. This is simply a time bomb. At this moment, Ao Xuanhuan really wanted to get out of the Black Tower and throw it away. But, he simply couldn't do it. Damn, it's a blessing, not a curse, it's a curse that can't be avoided. Since I can't throw it away, then Lao Ao will take it? He got angry. Anyway, I have encountered enough evil things. Not bad for this one. And when he raised his eyes, he saw the bones of the Forbidden Lord looking at him respectfully, with bloodshot veins representing vitality all over his body. What are you looking at? Imitate a dog barking and listen. Ao Xuanhuan spoke. The bone was startled for a moment and seemed to be in trouble, but it still started to click. Ao Xuanhuan was speechless when he saw it and said, "Forget it. I can't afford to pay for this thing if it breaks." Ao Xuanhuan put away the bones of the Forbidden Lord, and then realized that he seemed to have broken through to the Liuzang realm. He was very happy and hurriedly checked his newly awakened magical power. The energy from the 6 internal organs turned into thunder and lightning, lingering on the legs. Thunder legs. Ao Xuanhuan was surprised. In this way, it seems that my attack ability has been greatly increased. 1 kick is shadowless, 2 kicks are ruthless, 3 kicks are invincible. This magical power is called the 9 Heavens Thunder Triangle Kick. He was quite pleased. Then, he used Chasing Stars and Chasing Moon unparalleled wheels and flew all the way back to where Song Ji-Yuan was. Brother Xuanhuan, you are finally back. Song Ji-Yuan was very pleasantly surprised when he saw Ao Xuanhuan. In this desperate situation, Ao Xuanhuan can come back. How's it going? Is the matter done, brother? Ao Xuanhuan took out the jade box and said, "It's all done." Seeing the bones of the Forbidden Lord in the jade box, Song Ji-Yuan was immediately excited and burst with joy. "That's great, brother Ao, you are really my brother. Now when I go back, I can get promoted again." Xuanhuan was also quite happy. He suddenly thought of the ability he had just obtained from the Black Tower. He couldn't help but look at Song Ji-yuan and said, "Brother Song, I wish you happiness every day." Song Ji-yuan was overjoyed. At this moment, he was suddenly startled, and then suddenly burst into tears for no apparent reason. Tears fell from his eyes. When Xuanhuan saw this, he was immediately stunned and said, "Brother Song, what's wrong with you?" Song Ji-yuan burst into tears and said, "I suddenly thought of my mother. I miss her so much. I don't know why, but I just feel like crying. I want to cry. Mom, I miss you." He burst into tears, so heartbroken. Xuanhuan was immediately dumbfounded. Damn. Didn't we agree to promote? Why does he feel that this is a reverse promotion? Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 861. In the vast cold abyss of heaven. The sword master had disappeared, and his body turned into countless light spots, gathering away. Since the corpses of Wuzun and Yinzun filled the abyss, a long phantom bridge has appeared in the cold silence. At this moment, the light transformed by the sword master gathered in it, and the light bridge suddenly became more solid. The other side of the abyss. A world shrouded in grey fog. Scarlet eyes were densely packed, staring at the insurmountable abyss ahead. The third evil corpse has entered the abyss. The connection between the grey mist sea and the white mist world has become stronger. I feel, now this bridge may be able to carry us and send some people over. Seeing the light bridge in the abyss, many beings became commotion. Yuxiang of the Grey Jiao clan went there in person. I hope everything is safe. According to the news from the forbidden visitors, well, the strongest in the world are just a group of road warriors. Haha, the grey beast is enough to destroy the entire world. Don't be so optimistic. It's impossible for that woman to have no backup plan. Besides, he has discovered the traces of Sword Ancestor, which is enough to prove some of our conjectures. As long as Jian Kazuo can bring back the situation in that world, it will be good. Everyone in the Grey Fog Sea is waiting for the news from Tianyuan, and there is a lot of discussion at this moment. I heard that the Sword Ancestor is still stuck in the realm of the past. He is still just seeing ghosts. Haha, I don't know if it's true or not. So, the dozen or so of them should be about the same. So what if we were once extremely powerful? If we miss the Golden Age, we can only become invisible to everyone. They are already useless. If we have the opportunity to kill a few of them, let their corpses achieve our supreme reputation. Many of these beings have similar seniority to Kazuo. When they were young, they had all heard the legends of Sword Ancestor and others. During those years, Jianzu and others called themselves ancestors and were invincible. But now, eons have passed, they have experienced the Golden Age and have grown up, but the mountains they could only look up to in the past, have been stepped on by their feet. So, who doesn't want to defeat the once peerless master and achieve supreme fame? It's a pity, it was Kazuo who passed by. He got a great opportunity. Many beings are very envious of Kazuo. However, at this moment, no. My brother is dead. An exclamation suddenly sounded. Another strong man from the Grey Jiao tribe, Jian Yishan, was extremely shocked at this moment. Suddenly, many powerful people are paying attention. What, Kazuo is actually dead, incredible. Didn't I say that Sword Ancestor is still just a ghost seer? How could I let Kazuo Feng die? This world doesn't seem that simple. Many existences are somewhat accidental. The place guarded by that woman is definitely not a good place. Jian Yuxiang underestimated the enemy. He came rashly in his true form and was killed. It's not surprising. Someone spoke in a deep voice and said. But its sacrifice is valuable. We have at least proved one thing. Back then, the Sword Ancestor, the Yin Ancestor and a dozen other powerful men were indeed brought into this white mist world by that woman. Report to those adults immediately. Jian was very sad one day, but he left the place immediately. Soon, from the depths of the grey mist sea, a supreme decree flew out. Construct a passage, send people there, bring gifts from the grey mist sea, and let some of the dozen or so strong men return to the grey mist sea. This news made the scarlet eyes of many creatures guarding the abyss flash with surprise. Bringing gifts? Let them return. How is this going? Many creatures asked questions. According to the speculations of those adults, the dozen or so strong men who were taken away by that woman must be related to the generosity she left behind. So, letting those people return to the grey mist sea is the easiest way. It may even be possible to find out everything. There are whispers from creatures who know the inside story. But they have left the grey mist sea for countless years, and have not accepted the baptism of the golden world. Are they still willing to return? Yes, there are rumors that those 10 strong men chose to avoid disaster during the great turmoil and had a negative attitude. They were even denounced as traitors by many adults in the grey mist sea. This sparked a lot of questions. Haha, the great turmoil eons ago was because there was something wrong with the source of practice. Just when many creatures were puzzled, a creature of great origin appeared. It had 3 scarlet eyes, 6 huge wings, and a huge body. It was a 9-winged phoenix. The status of this clan is even higher than that of Huijian, the eternal ring demon snake, etc. The strongest bloodline of the 9-winged different phoenix clan can give birth to 9 wings. This 6-winged creature is definitely considered a direct descendant in the clan. There is a great terror on the road ahead for spiritual practice. All souls are terrified, the grey fog and white fog are trembling, the Taoist landscape is full of ghosts, no one dares to take a step forward. The 9-winged phoenix then spoke. Sword Ancestor and other beings thought that woman could solve the catastrophe, so they chose to go to this white mist world with her. To put it bluntly, they are just trying to break the predicament and continue on the path of cultivation. And from now on, it seems that that woman has not solved their problems at all. They are still just seeing ghosts through the eternity. So, we just need to let them know that in the sea of grey fog, all roads are completely open, and they will naturally return. In this case, that woman's plan will be defeated. In an instant, many creatures in front of Tianyuan suddenly realized and understood. Eons ago, peerless masters such as Sword Ancestor and Sound Ancestor followed the woman known as the End of 10,000 Paths to the world of white mist on the other side of the abyss in order to break through. But after all eternity, Sword Ancestor and others still have not broken through their realm. This shows that the woman did not continue the path forward for them at all. Therefore, in this case, as long as the side of the grey mist sea can provide incentives and let those strong people see the great road to the sky in the grey mist sea, they will come back, of course. These once powerful men are no longer important figures worthy of attention. 9-winged phoenix continued to explain. It's just that they understand that world, and they are very likely to know the layout of that woman, therefore, we have to let them live and let them return from that world, haha, otherwise, there is no way to kill them. All the creatures on this side of Tianyuan are aware of it. Okay, let's work together and send him there. The current bridge should be able to send some low-level creatures across. A pair of scarlet eyes suddenly lit up, embellishing the entire grey mist world with a strange and eerie look. The 9-winged phoenix whispered. Well, it's my first time to go there. According to the opinions of those adults, I will bring a magic book, a piece of immortal blood crystal, and a piece of original red copper. There are 3 strong men who will like these 3 gifts, they are also the ones most likely to return. Its 3 scarlet eyes are looming. Soon, with the combined efforts of many powerful people, there seemed to be an illusory passage on the bridge where the light points gathered in the abyss. Notify over there and find someone to guide you. The nine-winged phoenix gave orders and said coldly. Select 10,000 elites from all races and send them over. Hearing this, many creatures were shocked. Do you need so many? The nine-winged phoenix was very cold and said. The power of the abyss is unfathomable. Even though the connection has been strengthened like never before, there is still a price to pay for sneaking across. Out of 10,000 people, it would be a blessing if only one person could successfully pass through. In addition, we must prepare 50,000 backup elites. If it doesn't succeed, then keep trying. After hearing this, many other powerful men were a little confused. This is a spare tire that requires 50,000 UN to die.